I had a cork break in a bottle of whiskey a couple of months ago, and the bottle was like almost gone. Not, it was like a little bit left, maybe 3 or 4 shots left in the bottle. I was like, damn, how am I gonna? So I'm like trying to get the cork out.
They've started sweating.
We know exactly how this story ends, Dave.
Yeah, I ended up having to push the cork into the bottle and was like, I have to finish it now.
Yeah, exactly. I knew that was where the story was going to go. There was no way it was going to end with that. Like, you probably didn't even try to get it out. You probably didn't even try to find a solution. You're like, well, I have to drink this whole bottle of whiskey now.
I broke the cork on purpose.
He broke it on purpose. Yeah. He breaks every single one of his whiskey corks.
Welcome in, everybody, to another horror movie review. I am your host, Rob Coakley. Joining me, as always, is Dave Wilkins.
Hello, Rob Coakley.
Jesse Wilkins.
Hey there.
And we have a special guest joining us today from Agents of Fandom, my close personal friend and also my close personal movie nemesis, TJ Zworich. Sir, how are you doing tonight?
Doing very well. Happy to be here. Excited to chat about this movie with you guys. I missed the beard memo, which even if I got it, I wouldn't have been able to partake. But happy to be here with you, Rob, and to meet these fine gentlemen as well.
Yes. I am delighted to hear that you are Rob's movie nemesis, because that means we're probably going to agree on most of our opinions.
Yes. I do some movie reviews with him on a football podcast, and I chose one week one of my favorite deeply personal movies, Tick Tick Boom, and Rob just came in and tore it to shreds.
You made me watch that, and what was that other movie that was absolutely terrible? The tennis movie.
Oh, Challengers.
Challengers, absolute garbage heap that I couldn't stand. But alas, you can go find those. Actually, I don't even know if you'll be able to find those reviews. They're buried deep on the internet somewhere. TJ, tell us a little bit about Agents of Fandom before we jump into this movie.
Yeah, so I started Agents of Fandom with 2 friends of mine about 5 years ago now, getting close to 5 years ago. And we started out as just as a podcast, built to a website and a YouTube channel. And we cover kind of all aspects of TV, movie, video games, anime, but focus on sort of superhero / Star Wars / kind of whatever is popular in the moment that people want to hear us talk about kind of thing. So we have a podcast right now each week, live show breaking down The Last of Us, another one breaking down Andor. We'll be doing them for The Bear and Ironheart and movies like Superman and Fantastic Four that come out this summer. And then we get to do fun interviews with cast members and crew members as well. We got to interview some cast of the new Marvel movie Thunderbolts, got to interview some of the cast of the new Star Wars show Andor. So been slowly building up. It's kind of one of those things where it feels like nothing happens, no growth for 4, 5, 6 months, and all of a sudden there's a big boom for a couple months, and then we plateau again. But we're in the midst of one of the big booms right now, so it's a lot of fun.
It's very cool. And I was actually on that Last of Us podcast 1 or 2 weeks ago. So if you're following along with The Last of Us, make sure you listen to that podcast after you watch each episode. But we are here to review the movie Companion. And this is a newer movie. It came out in the last several months. It is on Max right now streaming. So we are going to spoil this movie as we let you know every single week. So make sure before you even listen to this synopsis, if you haven't watched it, I would suggest watching it, but you have been warned. If you do not, you are going to hear spoilers for this movie. Dave, can you hit us with the synopsis for Companion?
Companion, 2025, directed by Drew Hancock. A weekend getaway at a remote cabin turns to chaos when it's revealed that one of the guests, a subservient android built for human companionship, has gone haywire. And this is one of those movies where the synopsis spoils it, which drives me insane. Like, find another way to write that synopsis before you, because it's honestly like one of the, I had no idea what this movie was about. And when I started watching it, that reveal that it was an android totally caught me off guard. And then the second reveal that there was another android caught me off guard a second time. It was like a cool 1-2 punch. Was a really fun way to watch this movie going into it blind. I had a great time watching this movie. It's fun. I don't know if I'd classify it as horror. Definitely sci-fi, definitely thriller. But I mean, I guess it could be horror. I didn't find it particularly terrifying, but I did enjoy it.
It was interesting, and it's good that Rob actually mentioned that that we were going to spoil it, because that synopsis did spoil the biggest twist in the movie. And then we were hit with the 1-2 punch, like you mentioned there, of another one. And then you started thinking, like, wait, how many of them? But then there was no more. But it was not at all what I was expecting with this movie. But then once that reveal happened, you thought back to those little clues that they gave. And one of those was basically, you can command this thing. It's like a robot that you can have sexual relations with if you choose to. And
not if you choose to. That's the purpose of the robot.
Right. But it's much more than like the sex robot that Rob has, which is, it's not like a girlfriend, it's just
a Roomba.
It's just a Roomba. It's just his Roomba. It wasn't meant for sexual pleasure. There's a reason that thing keeps trying to escape from his head.
That's why it just goes in circles all the time now.
Struggles with stairs. But you go back and you see the little clues, where the big reveal was when he's what was her name in the movie?
Iris,
where he's like, Iris, go to sleep. And you're like, whoa, wait a second, what the fuck just happened? But you realize that he had said that the night before too, and she's just going on, and she's like, oh, I really love you, and this is such a good time. I'm so glad. And he's just like, Iris, go to sleep. And you think in that moment that he's just like telling her to shut up and go to sleep. And there was another little hint earlier as well, where he's like, Iris, tell me the weather. And then she does tell him the weather. She's like, it's 72 degrees outside. It'll be mildly. And you think she's just being silly, telling him the weather. It turns out she has to, because she is in fact a robot, and that's
she's just like functions. She's like Alexa.
Right.
TJ, you want to give us your quick overview of the movie before we really start diving into it?
I really wish I got to see this in a theater with a packed crowd. I think that would have made it even more fun than it already was. I didn't have it spoiled for me, but from like the poster and just kind of how things were going early on, I had a feeling that she was going to be a robot of some kind, but I had no idea if she knew, if he knew, who was kind of like the mastermind behind the situation. Was she the only one? And then when the second one came, that totally caught me off guard and blew me out of the water. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time, and I finding myself in 2025 with these movies that aren't full-on horror movies, but have horror aspects of it. Companion, Sinners, winding up or being kind of some of my favorite movies of the year so far. And so I had a lot of fun with this one.
A lot of great reveal, like twists in all these movies too. I feel like every single 2025 movie we've reviewed so far has been like, oh, and there's a crazy twist. By the way, spoiler alert. There's just a lot of them. It's been a pretty fun year so far.
Yeah, I thought this one did a lot of good work with foreshadowing for some of these events. So I sort of picked up on the fact that the second one might be a robot when they did the meet cute thing, as they showed their little meet cute at the party with the dinosaur tail and stuff like that, sort of the same way that they showed the grocery store scene. But I'll save it for the end. But there was we
didn't know that they were robots at the time of that conversation.
Right, but once she was revealed, then you look back on it, you're like, oh yeah, that was the other little hint there. And I'll save the other one for later though. But they got me. They were setting up something in this movie, and I didn't catch it until they did it. And I was like, oh shit, they showed this twice, and I didn't pick up on it at all. But overall,
can you just tell us? Because now I'm super curious.
So. Well, it's the end. We'll talk about it at the end.
Okay, that's fine.
Just hold off. Just relax. This is just the overview, Dave. Okay. We're just overviewing the movie right now. I do think that it leans into more sci-fi than horror, but I can see a small horror aspect of this as well. But I would say this is like a top-notch Black Mirror episode.
Mhm.
more than a horror movie is what I would say. But
It's
yeah,
almost
I
like
thought-
a sci-fi slasher.
Kind of.
right. Yeah. Yeah,
Little-
and it has those elements for sure, like where there are some scary parts. But it's also funny and it's well acted. Like everybody's great in this movie. It's so funny that I like Jack Quaid because I hate his father so much in almost everything that he's in.
Yeah.
But Jack Quaid, I've never seen him in something that I was like, he's not great in this. Maybe his first appearance in the Hunger Games, like where he was just like a
Little kid.
nothing character, like maybe that. But everything else Jack Quaid is in, I think he's been phenomenal in. So I was blown away by his performance again. Played it perfectly. Just a little nuance there. But let's fully dive into this movie. We've already sort of revealed that she is a robot, and the crux of this movie is he sort of hacks her settings and is setting up for her to commit a murder to Sergey, the guy who he is saying is a mobster, which turns out to not be true either. So like a lot of twists and turns throughout this entire movie as you go through it. But that's sort of where everything jumps off at the lake when she has the knife in her pocket. And that's not what I thought they were setting up there.
I thought it was great where they're like, he's a mobster, and you get those ideas early on. He's obviously got a ton of money, kind of behaves like a Russian mobster. And he's actually explaining at the little party that they had to one of the guests. He's like, the work that we do is very dirty. Put my fingers in many pots. And he's literally talking about the work that he does because he was working with like sod or something. So like you find out that he's actually just talking about dealing with dirt. Like it's like it was such a funny scene to think back on because he did seem like a mobster. And you're like, oh, he was speaking extremely literally in that scene.
It makes you want to rewatch it, right? Because now that you're looking back, you're like, did I miss anything else throughout this movie that they were sort of like playing with in the beginning, telling you things as you're going through?
Yeah,
I didn't even consider that he wasn't a mobster because of the way the cops acted towards him. Like it very much seemed like, oh, this is a bad guy who's got all the cops in his pocket. But in reality, it was just like, he does so much for the community. We want to make sure he's safe.
Yeah. So good.
I was going to say, I'm definitely going to rewatch this for the exact reasons that you guys are talking about because of all the Easter eggs that were in it. Because I think it was really, really, really well crafted altogether.
I thought they were setting something else up at the pool at first, or at the lake when she goes out there and she looks at the knife. I was like, oh shit, what is she about to do to herself? Like out here, like, is she unhappy? They didn't really show that. And then, it unfolds the way it does. Sergey comes out. He wants to make love to her by the lake, we will say. She's fighting it off, which she's not supposed to, but her boyfriend had overridden the code. And like shenanigans ensue from that point because she stabs him. And they make that pretty brutal, is what I will say. To your point, TJ, they're kind of hitting on this slasher thing. She comes in covered in blood. There is blood galore as she enters there, and you're like, oh, okay, so we're not holding back on the gore in this movie, which is fine. I'll take it all day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what the gore is what kind of gives it that possible horror movie edge possible. Because aside from that, it really isn't. It's more of a sci-fi movie. But I feel like it does kind of hit like a slasher just because of the gore.
And I think if you go to the scene with the cop, it actually is pretty funny. I actually love what she does in that scene.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Where she changes her voice output to German because she's not allowed to lie, even though like she turns her intelligence up to 100, she still can't lie. So she does the whole, she's just answering in German. So that the cop doesn't know what she's saying at all.
She goes, do you speak English? She goes, I do speak English. And she's saying this in German. Goes, I do speak English, but I set my programming to German because I can't lie. And he's like, oh.
But as funny as that scene is, that's where you get your main horror scene, I think. Like your classic horror scene when the other robot is slowly walking up from behind.
Mm-hmm.
and coming up to the cop, and you're just like, oh no, it's not going to go good for this cop, because we've seen that the aggression was turned up to 100 on his thing, and we're sort of jumping all over the place. But I think that the dialogue is great in this movie. I think it's acted very well.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we get great atmosphere. I love the, like, it's not just one location, but you still sort of feel trapped, even though it's the woods.
Mm-hmm.
They play with that really well with the car and stuff. With her not being able to escape because of the voice commands and stuff like that. Is there anything that you guys found, like, atmosphere wise, actor wise, that you did or didn't really like about this movie? We'll start with you, TJ.
That I didn't like, not in particular. I wish I would have been able to go in a little bit blinder, so that I wouldn't have seen the first kind of android twist coming, even though it still hit because I didn't see any of the circumstances of it coming. But I did want to kind of touch on a positive. I wanted to touch on something you talked about with Jack Quaid before, because I agree with you. I've enjoyed him in basically everything I've seen him in, but this is the first one I haven't seen him be a delightful character. Like, he's either kind of always like the lovable dweeb or the nice guy. Even he voices Superman in My Adventures with Superman, and he's an incredible Clark Kent. But this is the first time I've seen him be an asshole and really just not be actively rooting against him. And so I want to, like, credit the performance, and also it made the movie so much more fun for me having a character like him, where I was just like actively hoping he died throughout the whole movie. Like, I was just like, get this guy. Like, as the chaos was unfolding, I was really just ready for him to bite the bullet. And so it was kind of a surprise for me to get to see him play that type of character. But in terms
I would
of,
say scroll through his catalog and watch some more of his movies, is what I would say.
I will, because I'm mostly exposed to him in The Boys.
Right.
And so this has kind of given me the bug to want to do that now.
Yeah, I would definitely do that for sure, because he does have a wide range when you start going through his catalog. But I totally understand that aspect, because he does play that character you're describing. He plays phenomenally well. So it is really good when you do see him juxtaposed as somebody that is a little, and he even starts off that way in this movie. Like, it builds through to that. So
He does, but you're left with questions, because the way the movie kicks off is her admitting, she's like, the moment I fell in love with him, and then the moment that I killed him. You're like, oh shit, what did he do to make this girl want to kill him? And it was kind of like a weird twist. So I went into this movie completely blind. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought the twist took me completely by surprise. And I also thought some of the horror elements were pretty horror-ish. I mean, like obviously that first scene when she comes back in, Rob, you mentioned it earlier, where she's covered in blood, disgustingly so, just completely maroon from the neck up. Like, it was very gory. And then I thought that those characters were also, particularly her, absolutely horrifying when they were in sleep mode and their eyes roll back in their heads and they're just sitting there just completely still with that look. Like, it was a horrifying look. They also look kind of almost like they had like a bluish hue when they're in that state, which made them look even more like a corpse. I thought it was cool that they kind of, when they first transported her to his apartment, she was in kind of a coffin. So obviously that was kind of a bit of a foreshadowing there. And then one of my favorite moments in the whole movie was towards the end, when the tech guys show up to pick her up, and he's explaining what went wrong. Like, well, I don't know. Like, she just defended herself, and I know they're not supposed to hurt people. So he's giving them the whole spiel on how she killed these folks or whatever. And as soon as they're out of earshot, one of them goes to the other one. He's like, oh, did you believe that? He's like, oh, he modded her. Absolutely. that guy's screwed. Like, like of course they knew right away. And I thought that was a cool element too, because you got to assume that, and you're seeing this today, not just with like sex robots, but with like the Tesla robots and stuff, where these things are being, I don't think they're for sale yet, but we're on the verge of that. It's going to happen. You will be able to have a robot in your house for some ungodly amount of money in the next 5 years, I'd guess. where you can have a robot that will cook for you and clean for you and do certain things. I think that it's probably going to be extremely expensive at first, but I do think it's going to be a thing in the next 5-10 years. So this is like not that far away. And then you got to think about these computer geniuses who would be able to mod these things. And then then we're in Terminator, because then it's like, if you can mod this thing to override its nonviolent tendencies and have it go kill your neighbor for mowing, for blowing leaves into your lawn or something, you're going to have chaos ensue. So this is not even out of the realm of possibility, because this is something that's on the horizon, and it's something that I believe people will be able to manipulate, which is terrifying. They're going to find a way to do it. They're going to be able to mod these things.
So this is what it's like to be on a horror podcast. I'll now have nightmares for the next few nights, thinking about how we're only a few years away from the robot uprising.
Yeah. So what's interesting about this movie is, like, no, I wouldn't completely classify it as a horror movie, like Dave was saying, where it's more of a sci-fi thriller with some comedy elements to it as well. What's more scary about it is the possibility that this is not that out of reach. Like, this could be something that could happen sooner than later.
Yeah. I think it does a great job with the AI in each of the robots as well, and giving you that question where, like, it's sort of like questioning like the humanity of the robots throughout the movie, like, and seeing the different reactions from different people, where a couple of them are just like, these are just machines, but then the one guy was overly attached to his robot, right? Where he's like, he actually loved that robot and was like, this is because they kept saying to him, they're like, you could have upgraded your model like years ago. And he's like, no, this is the one that I like spending my time with. This is the one that I'm attached to. So it brings up those questions as well. So it does so many things in this movie that I really like. It's very thought provoking while being funny, and keeping the runtime down to an hour and a half.
Yeah. I have a negative though.
Let's hear it.
So Iris's character, when she learns that she's not human, that she actually is a robot, she at first was like, oh, what? This is like, took it kind of hard for a second, but recovered and adapted pretty unusually fast. Now, I think that's,
Dave.
but she didn't know she's a robot. So in philosophy, there's a theory called hard solipsism. I've talked about it once or twice here, but there's also like a smaller sect of that called last Thursdayism. So picture this, right? You right now just learn that you were created 5 minutes ago, or we'll say last Thursday, because that's what the hypothesis is called. You were just created last Thursday, and every single one of your memories was uploaded to your brain. And you just realized this now. You believed you were human. You believed all of the relationships you had or existed since the beginning of your life, right? And now you learned that all of it was fabricated a week ago. You're going to be like, fucking what? Like my whole life? And I feel like that even a robot that has artificial intelligence that believes that it was a human would have a hard time grasping that. And so I just felt like she recovered a little bit quickly.
I would argue that AI is able to adapt quicker to a situation like that than we are. Like you're bringing in human emotions, which they are portraying, but they are also able to alter faster.
Maybe.
And understand quicker what's going on, right? Their processing power allows them to, and that's what makes us different.
I suppose I am applying it to human emotions, but if their AI emotions are designed to be human emotions and they're designed by humans, I feel like it would be a lot more human.
But she also upgraded her intelligence to 100. So
yeah, but even before that, I feel like she recovered too quickly. Like the fact that she's like playing with the eye color and whatnot. I mean, I guess I could say that that would be curiosity and whatnot. It just felt like she recovered too quickly. Like that would, if you told me that I was a robot, I would have a really hard time believing that.
Yeah, but once she put it all together and she's finally able to change the stuff is when she's going through that, she ups her thing. Like you're gonna play around with it. You're going to be curious at that point.
I would,
right?
But I still think I would have a hard time grappling it a much harder time. But again, I'm human. I'm not an AI robot. I think. I hope.
From what we think, from what we
Yeah.
know at this point in time.
Yeah. There's no way. There's so what's funny about this philosophical theory of hard solipsism, there's no way to prove it or disprove it. Like you can't prove that. And like solipsism is like you're the only consciousness that exists, and there's no way for you to prove to yourself otherwise.
Right.
That's
And we're also talking about a situation where, depending on the individual or the way the AI has been trained, it's going to react differently
right.
overall. So that is the other fly in the ointment on that particular thing.
Mm.
Let's jump into the end of this movie. So this is what ruined it for me. Like, I don't want to say ruined it, but I did see a preview for this while I was at a different movie a couple months back. And they start off the trailer by showing the scene at the table where her hand is over the flame, which is obnoxious that is in the trailer. Like, because that sort of tells you that something's not quite right here, right? Like, and it starts to give you start to think about it a little bit more, that there's something a little off about this character. But that scene on its own is phenomenal. And I think this is sort of where Jack Quaid does his best work in the entire movie, where he's eating this dinner, having this conversation with Iris, and sort of working their way through everything there. And I think this is sort of the biggest horror movie moment of the entire thing, where we are not, we are, our protagonist is a robot. We know that they're not supposed to feel anything theoretically, but because they've been designed to, because we can actually see tears coming out of her eyes, we still feel terrible for her having to put her hand over this fire and just keep it there while he just nonchalantly takes a phone call.
Mhm.
And her entire hand catches on fire. And I think that this entire scene is done so well from beginning to end to our resolution.
It really is. It's the way that they're able to make you feel the emotions for this robot, and they did it masterfully.
Yeah. And the foreshadowing. So this, we'll go back to what I brought up in the beginning. They foreshadowed the ending of this movie with the final kill weapon. They showed that automatic bottle opener twice in the movie, close up.
They did.
And I usually pick up on shit like that, and I did not pick up on it in this movie at all. And I'm very upset with myself for not picking up on it. But what a friggin' kill to end this movie with.
Oh, super unique.
And it looked so good. The eye, Jack Quaid's eye, especially being sort of turned in a little bit.
Mhm.
What a freaking kill.
Yeah, because of the corkscrew. That was great. They did a good job with that, and they did a good job with her with the gun too. When that gun, she pulled the trigger in slow motion, and then the bullet kind of goes through, and you see it, like her eyes light up as it passes through and comes out. Pretty cool scene.
Yeah, that was a great scene as well. What were your thoughts on the ending, TJ?
So that was a super cool kill, and there's just been like twice in the last couple months that I feel like I've seen a brand new, totally unique, cool kill style, and it was in this with the automatic bottle opener, and without spoiling anything, a certain scene in Daredevil Born Again that really shows you why that show, even though it's on Disney Plus, is TV mature, where somebody gets their head squeezed open. And it's kind of, I've never really, like, growing up, I was never really a horror guy, and I find myself getting squeamish at like hospital shows, but I don't for this type of thing.
Yeah.
And so it was with how much throughout the movie I was just getting built up more and more of wanting this guy to die, and knowing it's coming but not knowing how. It was a very, very satisfying conclusion to that.
Absolutely. And I think the final scene in this movie is pretty perfect, where she's driving down the street in the car, and she pulls up to the car, and there's a model of her, like the same type of model, in the car next to her. So she sort of sees what her past life was and what her future life is going to be driving in the car as she heads off with all the money and is a robot. So I thought that was a fitting ending to this movie.
And it was a movie that was one of those movies that has an allegory or a certain message there to trying to push. I believe that was an allegory for domestic abuse, and I thought it was one that you get two different kinds of movies when they try and do this. You get one where they're just clubbing you over the head with their message, and it's really annoying, and then they have ones that are like really brilliantly crafted into the story, and I thought this was the latter.
Yeah, I agree. I thought they did that very well. I thought it hits on that. It hits on quite a few different topics in terms of like the future and AI and robots and Roombas and, you know, demonic corkscrew weapons. But does anyone have any final thoughts before we give a score to this?
It is funny because I don't dabble too much in wine, but I think it was yesterday I was opening a bottle of wine to cook with because I do use it for deglazing, and I just like broke the cork in half. I'm like, God, I suck at this. I suck at opening wine. So then I, recorked the second half and I got it out. But still, I was like, I could never work at a fancy restaurant and be the guy that serves the wine because I can never get opening a bottle of wine right. So when I saw that being used, I was like, ooh, I could use one of those. And I saw him get murdered with it. I was like, I'm not going to buy that because I will accidentally corkscrew my temple.
You would probably be fine. It's Rob I would worry about with how he's treated that Roomba. I wouldn't want to have that corkscrew anywhere near my Roomba when the uprising occurs.
It was in the name. I had to try to screw it.
I had a cork break in a bottle of whiskey a couple of months ago, and the bottle was like almost gone. Not, it was like a little bit left, maybe 3 or 4 shots left in the bottle. I was like, damn, how am I gonna? So I'm like trying to get the cork out.
They've started sweating.
We know exactly how this story ends, Dave.
Yeah, I ended up having to push the cork into the bottle and was like, I have to finish it now.
Yeah, exactly. I knew that was where the story was going to go. There was no way it was going to end with that. Like, you probably didn't even try to get it out. You probably didn't even try to find a solution. You're like, well, I have to drink this whole bottle of whiskey now.
I broke the cork on purpose.
He broke it on purpose. Yeah. He breaks every single one of his whiskey corks. He does it on purpose. Oh, sorry, babe. Broke again.
Had to drink the whole bottle once again.
You're going to have to find me in the morning.
Guess I'll be naked down the street at 4 a.m.
Dave's in the koi pond again with Rob's Roomba. Oh, dear. Anyways, let's hop into some ratings, perhaps.
Yeah. So as much as I like this movie, I think it's well done. I think it's well shot, acted, and everything. I think they could have went a little further on some of it. So I'm going to give it a 4.2 out of 5.
Cool. I like this movie a lot. I would have had it higher. I guess if we were just giving it like a straight up movie review score, I would rank it a little bit higher. As a horror movie, I'm giving it a 3.9 because it wasn't scary enough. If I were to just rank this as like a regular just sci-fi movie that I'm watching, not as a horror movie, I think it's probably right with you, Rob, at 4.2.
Yeah. We'll leave our guests for last. I think I got this one at a 4.1. It was enjoyable. Loved the acting in it. I had no problems with anything really in this movie, but maybe we could have got some more gory kills. You weren't like, I just felt like we should have reached a point where both of them had their aggressiveness at 100%, that we should have either had like an epic robot fight or actually her intelligence was at 100, her aggressiveness was there. But either way, I feel like we could have had an awesome robot fight or just some more gory kills. I feel like they kind of nailed it in on a couple of the kills there.
I'm glad we didn't get the robot fight because I think that would have ruined the movie for me.
Could have. Yep.
TJ?
I admittedly haven't seen all that movies yet this year. I was just looking at my letterbox. I think I'm at like 27 or something like that. And I usually watch a lot more movies, but I've been watching just a ton of television this year. And I think there's only one 5 out of 5 or close to a 5 out of 5 for me, and that's Sinners. Mm-hmm. So I think I'm going to round out the little train we had here and slot in right at the 4.0. Mm-hmm. And just because this movie was a lot of fun, start to finish. I don't have any active qualms or like, hey, I would have done this different. I would have done this better. And so I don't want to rate it any lower than a 4, but it also wasn't really any type of like game changer for me. It wasn't like, it didn't leave me thinking about it a ton. 24 hours later, I had an absolute blast with it, but it didn't move me in the same way that say a Sinners did. I keep comparing it to that one just because although they were totally different movies, they have the horror-ish vibes to them, and I saw them within like a week of each other, and so that's why they kind of stick in my mind beside each other. So I'll go a solid 4.0.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too, because like Sinners is a movie that will stick with you probably for the rest of your life. It's a movie that you will at least think back to. I think you might with this one, but not nearly as much. Like you'll want to revisit this at some point. Sinners, you're probably going to want to revisit every 5 or 10 years for the rest of your life. I would probably.
Yeah. I haven't seen Sinners yet, so let's shut the fuck up about that for now. But with this one, I feel like it's going to be rewatchable at least once. Just because you want to go back and see what you missed, see what kind of cues there were before the twist. So I think it should be it'll be a fun rewatch. It was a fun movie. I did enjoy it. I recommend it. Is it horror? Only a little bit.
Yeah, more Black Mirror, but it would be a top 3 Black Mirror episode is what I would say.
Really good. This movie I think is super comparable to Ex Machina. If you guys have seen that,
I have not watched Ex Machina.
Not yet. I recommend it. Not horror, it's sci-fi.
Yes. Well, that's going to do it for our review of the movie Companion. Make sure you go check out Agents of Fandom with TJ. Check out the podcast for The Last of Us with them. All of their other superhero stuff that they have coming up. I was on an episode of The Last of Us, so if you're watching through that, make sure you go listen to it and let us know what your score is for Companion in the comments below, or let us know in Discord what you thought of this movie. For myself, for Dave, for Jesse, for TJ, we will catch you next time. Peace.